Cool. So we actually haven't done one of these talks. I don't know, have we done one since last year? I think we did. We haven't done any since last year.
So I think we might have done one,
Okay.
but not with everybody.
Yeah, like, so the Tellor values call, why are we doing it? It's sort of an important question. And I know, like, I know for me, like I was into crypto. I know you guys have all heard like my story a million times because I say it on podcasts, but like, so I got into crypto for a long time and like just sort of believe in like the idea that like if you have a free money and competing currencies and the ability to have a monetary system outside of the governments, that it ultimately leads to good things. So the ability for governments to declare war goes down, the ability for people to surveil you, privacy is ultimately a good thing. These are all sort of enabled by cryptocurrency. So if you can further the technology to such a point that people can have an entire banking system. So like we realized with Bitcoin and even some early cryptocurrencies, okay, you can have a currency, but you need banking systems. So you need tools, you need access to real world information. Tellor was a way that we, it was something that we sort of fell kind of into, as far as we can fill this piece of the puzzle to have, if we can add something to that decentralized stack, which is, decentralized finance, decentralized cryptocurrencies, then it can enable the whole system to work. And if this whole system works, then it leads to people can use what money they want. They can't be sanctioned by governments that don't like their views. Governments can't willy-nilly go to war with each other by printing money and stealing your money via taxes. And then, yeah, freedom of speech becomes a thing too. Like you're starting to see a lot of this sort of blend in, like, well, where does free speech and freedom of money sort of, they're sort of intricately tied together. If you can't move money privately or in whatever way you want, you don't really have freedom of speech. So a lot of these things are tied together. So how do we sort of enable that? And my views have sort of changed how we do that over the years, but that was just what kind of got me started and why kind of I'm still here. I don't know, Brenda or Mike, if you guys want to add anything.
So I started working with you because at the time I was passionate about anybody who was like an entrepreneur starting a business that had some sort of meaningful mission. And I met you, and you had this vision for Daxia or DDA at the time, and I was just getting into crypto at that time. So I was really pulled into the idea that this was a mission, sort of a mission-based endeavor. And through that, I sort of learned about crypto and learned about the ethos of the space. And of course, that was all really attractive. And it sort of occurred to me that like the blockchain and crypto was like it's like an opportunity that only comes around every once in a while, where like you have the onset of a brand new revolutionary technology and movement, if you will, and just the opportunity to jump on at an early stage. I think it's just rare. I think it's I think a privilege to be in the here and now around this industry and being able to play a role in it. And I thought, for me, I think that is a really exciting aspect of it. So that drew me into it. And, of course, I think all of us here, I think almost everybody watching this or on the team can jive with the, being pro freedom and pro privacy and pro decentralization and all those things. And I think those are almost a given at this point. Like, who would be against that?
Or who would be in this industry?
If you're not into that, it's kind of like, I don't know.
I think that's a fair question. We can talk about.
Well, no.
Well, hold on, because I don't want to talk about because you guys are like
Let's talk about
really
Brenda.
jumping. For me, it was a little bit different because when we first started working together on this, I just learned about really I had been doing my own research, but for literally I just wanted to invest on it, to be honest. when I started looking into it, when I started talking to Nick, and especially for Doxia, one of the things that really like attracted me was the fact that this thing was actually making available risk mitigation tools to people that actually needed them. In my view, that's important. And it's a very different view that like how to make things and whatever. But for me, it was super important to actually make these things like be part of the conversation. They got this to be a little bit better than what we had. And as an economist, it was like, wow, like I'm at the right age. It was like perfect timing for me in terms of where I stood financially to take such a huge risk. I mean, you had a great career, I had a great career, and we didn't just walk out of it because we thought, I mean, I thought it was something of substance, and I wanted to be part of the conversation of how that went about. Then we found out that like, you know, the infrastructure wasn't there. And I was in shock. When we were talking about, you know, we had an Oracle and we had like fallbacks, and we used to call it, you know, I used to have to go and like make sure that the numbers were there so we could settle. And I remember thinking like, how could we forget like something so important? Like, I just could not believe that that did not exist. When we started Tellor, like I was like, how do you go about
we were
building this
pre-truffle.
stuff?
It was like.
I know, but like,
everything
when we
changing.
first started it, I didn't think that this did not exist. I thought like for sure it's gotta be there. And like we kept looking and looking, and it was just shocking to me, to be honest.
What was it that had to be there?
Oracles.
Oh,
Like
just
how do you
oracles
not
in general.
have,
Yeah,
yeah,
Like
how
what?
can
Yeah.
how can it not be native for you to be able to get outside information?
Yeah.
Like for me, it was just like, but it would then, you know, that was part of like the learning process of how everything works. And it really, you were a programmer before, and learning solidity itself was so shocking. It was like, what? You can only have how many variables again? It was so limiting that it was just, I don't know. For me, it was great to be part of the conversation and hopefully like grow with the industry. Now I know now I don't actually program anymore because you guys do all the hard work, which is great. But it's one of the ways that like I learned to really like grow with the industry and care about it in my own terms, and how I perceive, hopefully knowing how it works and being able to use it for my, I guess, not super personal goals, but yeah, like in the way that I see it working best for a lot more people. But sometimes, to be honest, I see what's going on in crypto and I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah. It's just sometimes it's so crazy. And so it's just such a young industry and so easily manipulated that it's like, that's why it makes it more important that we're actually here, or at least for me, like trying to at least listen in and hear where it goes.
Anybody else want to go?
Yeah, anybody else want to say like why you got in? What do you guys think? I mean, the one thing you can say is like, you know, maybe you guys can add this, like what were the kind of the values you saw originally in Tellor, and then like
That's had
yeah, I
that
mean, where
changed?
has this stuff
Have we
changed over the
changed
past
some?
few years, or have you guys changed as far as why you're in the space over the past few years?
I'll be the first to admit that I was holding Chainlink when I started Tellor.
Oh,
But I was in crypto, like I was into crypto from like 2017. I came in on that boat. And I've just always been fascinated by the innovation that we're having through the idea of money. And I actually had no idea the importance of oracles when I joined Tellor. I just met Mike through a Solidity course, wanted to get in crypto really bad. And we hit it off pretty well, and I thought it would be a great situation. And I've been here for 2 years already. I'm like really grateful that it was like I landed here as my first project as opposed to like an NFT project, because like you guys said, the infrastructural part is still like very much being developed. And yeah, I'm just really grateful I landed here and not just some flash in the pan like money grab.
and you make a good point about infrastructure. And I think we should consider oracles as infrastructure, right? But like if you're working, I think the projects in the space working on infrastructure, it's like you can't skip over the values of crypto when you work on infrastructure, because the nuts and bolts, like those values are built into the nuts and bolts of Ethereum and Bitcoin and stuff like that. And if you are building with, you're
Right.
interacting with that stuff, like you can't, it's unavoidable. You have to do
Right.
that. Whereas if you're just building on top of it, then you can just almost choose which parts really matter to you as much.
But I think when most of the crypto space, when it comes to oracles, is kind of found in the oracle part of it so far, which is disappointing. When I met Nick, Mike, and Brenda, I didn't know what an oracle was or a smart contract. I thought they were trying to scam me at a meetup. And
We were, but
so yeah, I kind of went home and learned about it and everything, got more involved.
well, so you were mining well before that.
I was
though.
mining. I knew like what crypto proof of work cryptocurrency was, and crypto appealed to me immediately because I grew up in a place where I don't know, I grew up in Appalachia, and I don't trust institutions as much as a lot of people. I like having control over my life as much as possible without having to depend on companies for my, for my money or
Mhm.
whatever is going on.
So when you saw
I was into Zcash, yeah.
Right?
Zcash,
Okay.
the whole idea of like controlling your keys, and all that stuff, you were like, I'll be my own bank.
I just have a Bitcoin wallet that I memorized that I don't have written down anywhere.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's amazing to have met Tellor by chance because Tellor's trying to build a truly, an oracle that can be used, permissionlessly without
Even some guy in Appalachia could use it.
even some random, there's somebody submitting weird stuff on mainnet right now that I'm like, so.
That one little detail is like actually kind of a cool milestone because we were really itching for a while to get to a point where like people are using us without talking to us.
Yeah.
In ways that we don't expect to
Yeah.
anticipate.
That should be the norm eventually.
And that's a value, that's a up until now, kind of an unachieved.
We had it a few times, like for random scams back in the day, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like someone
we
using a
haven't
scheduled
forked.
reporter. Yeah,
well, we have random,
we haven't forked.
there's random new reporters now reporting to the data, like I see them on the data feed. And there's random contributors on the GitHub.
Yeah, our number of reporters went up like 50%. We're at 136 now on mainnet only. Yeah, check the monitor. Famous bug.
I always lose the link to it.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah,
I can send it. Yeah.
we should create a wiki that's just an internal use wiki or something like that.
Like a
We just-
dashboard. sort of
Yes, like a wiki
thing.
dashboard that like, it's, we could just have all that stuff stored and we can all access it async. You don't need to ping anybody.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, anything you wanna add?
Yeah,
Pictures of the bags only.
yeah. I kind of came from, got an economics degree. And I was really into econ stuff, like using incentives to help people coordinate. And then I also had some experience in computer programming. And so I had those two interests over the years. And then along came crypto. I found that back in 2017. And it really drew me in, this decentralized system that didn't depend on some company or government to make it work, to make the people in the system follow a set of rules. So yeah, that's what really drew me in. Like I saw all these different articles of people's ideas of different things you could do with this cool new system with smart contracts. And then, yeah, so I started working at Raid Guild, in crypto, and then, one point I worked with Tellor, and they seem to have some good values of actually having true decentralization, as a value, whereas a lot of, projects in the space kind of use that word, but they don't actually have anything to do with decentralization. But yeah, what really got me into crypto and Tellor is I just see a lot of potential for creating like ways of human coordination, different types of institutions that are enforced not top down and not with violence, but with this new crypto economic system. So yeah, that's what got me here.
Well, yeah, Kramer Owen, you guys want to chime in, or I guess you don't have to. Cool.
Oh, come on.
No, it's fine. I'm gonna make sure they talk later. We have
What?
We'll give them hard.
Yeah, I got, I applied for this job. I found it on LinkedIn, because Tally and I went to the same school. I like the team culture a lot. I like that it's a chill, workplace, flexible schedule, huge bonuses there. And it's less morally vague than working in the defense industry. That's where I came from. Yeah, I get a lot out of working for a team that's like, into what they're building and not just there for, cash in, cash out kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I
Into
mean,
what they're building. I like that as a statement, because it's,
well, I mean, like it's gonna get, like I think the values of a crypto company are, like we can sort of bring it up, like it's becoming more and more relevant as time goes on. Like the big sort of caveat is the last month was the tornado cash down. Like I know we had talked about it before, like it's forcing people to pick sides.
And we're building something that we all think it's gonna be used for something good. Just like cash is. Cash is also used for lots of bad things and it still exists. In my mind, the way that I see it is that we're building something that's gonna, hopefully enable like really cool things in the space. And with, it sounds very naive, but that's what I'm building. I go to sleep at night every day, like happily, and I know that what we're building is creating value and we're actually providing a service. We're not trying to scam anybody. We're super honest about how we work. And hopefully if that ever does happen, we can all be like, you know what, we tried our best to build something that was useful and valuable and created, a positive impact.
Tally, you were the first person that described Tellor using the phrase, or calling it a public good. I
Yeah,
think that, I mean, it's obvious when you think of it that way, but that word never popped in my head, but that's exactly what we're trying to do, create a public good that is autonomous, just.
Most
there.
of the stuff should be.
Yes, most of the stuff should be. It's exactly like Ethereum itself is a public good.
Infrastructure. in
Yes,
general is a
right.
public good
Yes,
also, that.
so,
I think the thing that really stands out to me compared to 2 years ago is removing proof of work. I think it made ease of interaction, aside from user experience, like ease of interaction with the Oracle a lot more accessible. And I think it's enabled us to get to places where I don't remember this on topic, but
it is.
to get to places where we can get that person who's reporting on us and we don't know them.
Yes.
I think in the States, we usually call ETH programmable money, and I feel like we're getting to a point where we're the programmable Oracle, especially compared to like competitors that really black box the methods at which people create feeds or request data or submit data.
Yeah, I mean, so, You know, that it's like sort of a good pivot, like to my next question, which was like, how are we doing so far? You know, like if you look at like what our values or like think about the global, what's the mission, I guess, of Tellor, like we're never doing a mission
What
statement, I
can
refuse to
we
do that,
do?
but what's, yeah, like, I mean, how are we doing as a company in moving towards some of this stuff?
I think we made really big strides recently in terms of getting to the point where we always would say we would be easy to use and anybody can use it, but it was not practical for that to actually happen without our handholding and I think we're approaching this and we're starting to see those results that were like, if it is a public good that no one can figure out how to use, and then is it really, what is it, you know? So like the work that you guys have done to make it usable and more functional, I think we're finally arriving at that sweet spot. And I think for a while that was still just sort of in research and development mode and iteration mode. And it's really exciting to see that we're at that spot. We better be for 360.
I think, we, something that we, develop but understate is like we avoid obfuscation. Not only ideologically, but like in our code itself, and I think it should be noted, we have like one of the most functional but simplest code bases in the game.
It's good.
Yeah, so I think it's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you guys hit my points too, like, I think we're becoming more usable and we've made good strides in doing so. I think it's tough because like we haven't seen the usage that we want.
Which would have given us a ton of feedback.
We've gotten some usage, and we're getting a lot of people who try to build on us and then for whatever reason they fall off the boat. Seems to be the story over the past year. We have a lot of people who look really, really promising. And you know, and then sort of never for reasons completely outside of Tellor fall through, probably just due to the bear market in a lot of ways, but you know, we don't want to make excuses. But you know, so like we're getting better, but we're still not getting those giant use cases out of Tellor that we would hope to see.
I think that has to do also with just the way it's hard to implement this. And our brand, I mean, you said it this last time that you went out to San Francisco. The more as more time passes by, and I'm not really sure if it's the hackathons or I'm not exactly sure what it is, but people they know Tellor. Like that in itself is what actually gets them to research us and actually implement us. Because I mean, a year after, like it was very hard to implement us, and also people didn't know about us. And I feel that now it's much cleaner code,
Yes.
and then it's also like we're getting a lot more brand recognition. And we're very young. I mean, we launched on August 2019.
Sure, but the whole
we're super
space is
young.
young.
Yes, but like,
But I guess infrastructure projects are slightly different for sure.
yes, and we didn't have like the marketing budget that Chainlink had. Like when we were in Prague, but they had like next door, they had a huge party.
Yeah.
It was Prague. They didn't even have code out.
They
At
just
that
under
point in
the
time.
raise.
Chainlink had the rooftop party.
Yes.
I made you guys all pay for your plane tickets because we couldn't.
Right.
We had to,
Self-funded trip.
we had to, luckily we could email the EF for tickets because we had that
Yes.
contact, and then everybody had to pay for their own plane
But like,
tickets.
they had so much money for marketing and they didn't have, I think they launched like the next
year later.
a year later in May, like after we had launched. And it's just the way that we started, we really did not have the capital to do that. And it just took time, but also I feel like, and granted with this bear market, we've had a lot of people complaining and rumors and shit like that, but
Brandon's swearing, yes.
no, I mean, we're getting
She learned that in
stuff
prison.
right now. But like, it's the people that actually stay. I feel like that is what makes the protocol strong, because they're gonna be there for the long run. They're not gonna just disappear as soon as like name goes to like, I don't know how much it is right now, but whatever. They just have so much money for marketing that we didn't, and we have to give our. I mean, I see the credit in that, like that we have.
Sure.
It's low, but it's moving. If it was not moving at all, I would be more worried.
I think that's what I'm kind of most proud of about Tellor is like, we didn't sacrifice principles, so like, no ICO, no pre-mine, and then no.
Admin key,
What's that?
no admin key.
Yeah, it's just like, we're trying to solve a very difficult problem. So the focus has been building without sacrificing the decentralization. And that has never changed, and we haven't changed to chase any, wind of the market. It's always been about, first and foremost, building the actual product you set out to build. And having that message consistently stand through the ups and downs, I think is like, not a lot of companies can say that. A lot of companies that did want to say that have been able to stick around for this long. So I'm just really proud of that aspect. I think we've done a very good job of that. Consistency. That's
I think we sort of, right now we're in such a good place versus when we first started, that every month we were like, are we gonna make it? And so now it's like, to be honest, if we stay focused on the tech, it's way easier. Like, unless like we have to do something for operations, and I don't even look at the price. I just don't even.
Well, I mean, this is, but it's like a fair question, I think you could ask, like, one assumption that we've had from the beginning, and this will go into the branding and marketing, is that if we build it right.
Yeah.
Like our vision of where the space is going, like we can sort of say like, it's gonna be like EVM chain, it's roughly in multi-chain world, and then like what will people want as oracles? People will eventually want the decentralized oracles, just like they want decentralized chains. And that will do it. And sort of the assumption we've had all along is, if we just build it right, eventually it will come around. This has always been the assumption, like, yes, in the short term that people will do this. Is that still a fair assumption is the question. Do we call it a success if we build it completely right and nobody comes?
I don't think it's an assumption. I think it should be, what are we targeting? Because even at this point, Ethereum is very expensive, but for some reason, it's still like the bench. That's why the bridges are built to it. So it depends on, I feel like that has to depend. Obviously, we want the company to succeed, but how much are we willing to like trade off, Because you could say like nobody is, but as we've seen, even with Ethereum being super expensive, people were still there. People are still trying to bridge to it, settle to it. And it's not just an assumption, it's where we want to go.
I think absolutely would be a success. It would just be a shame if we built this thing, the corny phrase, be the change you want to see in the world or whatever, like that's what we're trying to do. And if the world doesn't actually change with us, like it would be a shame. It just, you would be able to, you'd be able to die proud of what you tried to do.
It's like if tomorrow Ethereum went down because of finance change.
Or yeah,
it was great tech.
I don't think that's all. I really think it was a failure.
Right.
So.
And it could still be picked up by any community that wanted it to use.
I do think we should make sure we do whatever we can to make it adopted. Like, it would be a shame, especially if for some reason we were one of the barriers for people using it in some way, through some oversight or undersight or whatever. But if it's some outside force, just the people themselves don't have the appetite for decentralized protocols and they just go full fintech, then fuck them. We did our.
Sure.
I mean, if no one is using it, then how can you really tell if you're building this like perfect tool? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, I mean there's like, it's
so it's like concrete examples, and then you have like this other, okay, like if no one's using it, like if this, if you're like mission driven, then it's basically like you take the reality that most people don't care about decentralization. They're just like in it for the bags, and like they don't care about like which oracle. So where you have to compete is like on the developer experience. And if our developer experience is not as easy as Chainlink's, we ain't gonna get used. You know what I mean? So it's like the two birds with one stone thing seems like what you're doing with like WagFi, where it's like, yeah, we need to, we're getting to the point where we can like build on top of the tools, our actual like product or whatever Tellor. And now we can build like a bunch of examples of using it and whatnot and making the
Yeah.
dev experience way better.
And the challenge there, right, is like if you're, my assumption is. If you're super centralized, right, the developer experience is much easier to engineer to be user friendly. Versus having to add in the hurdles and the challenges that being really decentralized presents. So it's actually a much bigger achievement to have a really smooth developer experience and user experience if you're also true to decentralization. And that's a cool target a cool goal for us to go after.
But yeah, I mean, I think to Owen's point, like you need usage in some fashion to show the success of it.
Otherwise, you're just guessing that
It's good.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's like the thing with like every single startup is like you like you're like looking for like this product market fit and it's like you need users. You can't just
well, I
like,
mean, like in some way you could just sort of frame it as like a sort of a research paper type thing. Like, we're adding to the literature of things that are possible. Like if I built a really cool zero knowledge proof thing, like I might not have any intention of getting users for it, but it does add to the literature for people to do later. And that might be something that, like you could call that a success in some ways. I don't think that's what we're going for here.
no.
But
But like people
right.
invented stuff way ahead of its time.
Sure.
Then like a decade later, someone basically does something derivative of that.
Yeah, exactly. But like I don't think that's what we necessarily want. Like we do want to get the usage now, and I think
you just want to be a citation, Mike. Okay. No.
I'm just describing the possibility that it could be the case.
right, like the hash,
I know.
But I think
yearly
that's one of the
days.
reasons we're moving to it. I mean, Tellor's gonna be much simpler. Tellor is looking really great. Just the fact that we doubled in reporters, I'm still like, why?
Yeah.
Who's doing this? But obviously, I mean, I would like to think that it's because it's easier.
Yeah.
Might be because TRB was worth more.
Maybe, yeah,
Could just be a lot more crossy, you never know.
it could be.
Well,
It
no.
could be all crossing.
It's not all Crossy. It's Crossy has like the signature on his reporter.
Crossy was here.
Crossy, he was like Crossy was here. But yeah, shoot.
No, what else?
I lost what I was gonna say.
Reminds me of that like where
What-
someone had like their Twitch handle in like their address or something or in like some bytes data. So like when he would like front run people. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, he did. He really did.
That's great.
But
So,
okay, so recently, with recent events, Tornado Cash events, USDC addresses getting censored. There's a lot of voices on crypto Twitter who made it very clear that they do care about things being decentralized and permissionless, and they're at least on Twitter a large, vocal force that says, we want to build stuff that can't be stopped. People say that.
Yeah, Terra too.
Well, I think projects say that, but then when it comes down to the money,
I want to make sure that, well, I don't know how to do it, but it would be great if we could connect with more people who actually care as
Yeah.
much as we can.
well, I mean, like we were almost the Oracle for DYDX earlier in the year, and then
Yeah.
and then they've sort of shown their hands. They quickly censored people before even being like maybe they were asked directly
They
to it by the Treasury, but
require KYC.
yeah, like it's just they're building something different, and they said they're looking into building decentralized front ends, and it's like we were trying to build decentralized front ends back in 2018. It wasn't like this was a new idea. Like it was the fact that you haven't looked into it until somebody tries to censor you just shows where you kind of sit. So I think when we get usage, it's going to be from people who aren't funded by the same people DYDX is funded by. It's going to be people who don't need to give VCs a return on their capital.
and I think that's really hard to find.
For
Like,
sure.
because, when you have a VC or any investment, depending on who it is, you have accountability. And that's very hard to find when you have startups in a brand new industry. Most of them are gonna be funded from somewhere. And I mean, I feel like we got kind of lucky. Because I think it was mostly because of our advisors and the turnover. But nobody really looked into our tech, really.
We got lucky that we didn't raise by anybody, you mean?
No. You
Yes.
know, that our
Yeah.
advisors were very nice, and very
Finance,
like,
yeah.
you know, hands off. But I mean, even the new ones, like they're more like, you know, they just care about the money. But like,
Yeah,
you're not gonna get that as a startup with no money. And most of the people in crypto, unfortunately, is like 20-year-old.
they get bad advice.
Yeah. And they're looking, a lot of them just looking to like make money and go. And that's different.
The protocols that make money and go will go.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And I don't have raw
How do
data
you weed out?
to prove it, but I believe that over time, a really decentralized system is more valuable. A centralized system that pumps and dumps and goes away, you know. Bitcoin's been around for a long time. Everybody agrees that it's decentralized, that people love it. Ethereum has been around for a long time. People agree that it's decentralized, and even though it's expensive, people love it. So, you know,
One of the things,
all of the L1 chains, and L1 chains, you can see it more clearly because there's more of them, and they raise more money or whatever. But and the centralized ones pump and dump and go away. So
how do we
hopefully-
get to meet all the people that don't go away?
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly conferences. We see a lot of
You just have
people
to- Yes.
that we keep seeing and seeing. There's a lot of people like that we see
Yeah.
once, but I feel like there's a
You've seen
few
the fourth
that
or
we
fifth
seem to
time.
see them. Yeah.
Yes. It
And
just takes time.
there has to
Yeah.
be something getting through.
after this bear market
Yes. Who's
or
still
during the
around?
bear, who survived?
With the same faces.
Yeah.
There has to be something about Tellor that's breaking through the noise because the token is very heavily traded, more than a lot of other low cap tokens. It's gotta be something there.
And we do try to be flexible, and we did try the fellowship. We tried to
I
like sort of like,
respect the fellowship.
but we tried it to try and onboard people, and it didn't work. What else could we try? It's not like we haven't, it's not like we're just like said to be a citation. It's just like,
Sure.
what else should we try?
We decided to tiptoe out of like, well, maybe we need to give people a stepping stone towards decentralization. And like hook them into the Tellor world through fellowship.
We're frankly not heavy on developer relations.
Okay. Developers.
No, I mean developer relations, like activities in which we like do education and things like that. Like at least one thing that came to mind for me from the last hackathon is that I started at least on my end, like I started prepping to do education material for the hackathon a week before the hackathon. And it showed me so many places where I started thinking like if I wish I'd started doing this like 3 weeks earlier.
Yep.
So that I could prepare material that was not only more engaging, but more in tune with like what we currently have live on networks and live on documentation.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that's gonna come. Just like part of the big problem with Tellor stuff is that we have been moving pretty quickly in updating things, so everything that we did 6 months ago is outdated.
Yeah.
Hopefully, once 360 launches, I mean, even now, like the 360, like none of the flex stuff none of the Polygon docs will change.
Yeah.
It'll be like much more seamless, and then hopefully everything you've done now is still good in 6 months, and it's still good a year later, so that it builds on it, not replaces.
So after November, it's like,
But yeah,
hopefully it's polished
Yeah.
up and making sure that everything is like.
Yes. Maybe it's a moot point now that we've it's in the past, but like, I wonder if, to your point, and I thank you for bringing it up, it's like 100%, I agree. But like, if part of one of our values has been like this, like fast iterative approach. What that has gained us is the fact that I think, Tellor's in a better spot from a technology standpoint than it was before, because we've iterated. made it better. But if we had, like I say, we had not, and like maybe stuck around with Tellor X for a while, or maybe even the proof of work Tellor for a long time, and then like focused on like the developer relations and making it like
Which is
packaging it up. Content, but all, yeah, it's content, but like just making it more usable and getting people to use it.
One thing we don't have, like these other huge projects with the huge marketing budgets, is they have huge quantities of polished content with their tutorials and everything. And we haven't had the chance to do that.
Well, like Nick was saying, is it because it's like you could spend all this money doing it and then it's immediately deprecated because of the new thing, and that's like a real challenge that we can't have the things we need to maybe get more users because we're improving so rapidly, which we need to do to get users. So it's like this catch-22, like all of it is moving towards, I think, this, and hopefully we're crescendoing here with 360, where like we can now slow down like the big major protocol improvements and then focus on like everything that's around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we don't have data on it, but it's super hard to tell how much it actually correlates, you know? 'Cause it's always one of those things, like is the problem getting enough better documentation or just getting more developers through to your documentation in the first place, or
Yeah.
like where are we failing along that user adoption line of getting name recognition to look at Tellor, difficulty implementing Tellor, the fact that they can do it, and then launching, like where do you fail?
What's the skill level of the developer, who is the decision maker, who's gonna look at the Tellor code?
Right,
Yeah,
because yeah, I mean,
it's the
it's
whole
all,
scale. It could be guys down here, it could be guys up here, and you have to like, you can't really optimize for one or the other because it could be coming from, you know, anywhere on that scale.
because I mean, I know at least you could make the argument that maybe if we had better documentation that we wouldn't have, we might have more people who use this without telling us.
Which is a value.
Which is, but I mean, the vast majority of people who reach out to us, it's not like they tried to implement us and then got stuck. They reached out to us before they even implemented us, or like when they're still, like they reach out to us like, can you guys do this kind of data? And then we say yes, and then we basically write their code and implement it for them. So it's not like, you know, like it's not like documentation had any sort of effect on any of that, because I very few users we make even go look at the documentation.
Yeah.
You know, like the Diva guy, like he probably never even had to look at our documentation. We handhold him and do the white glove because that's like what we know we're competing with Chainlink who does it. So we've tried to make that a priority. So, you know, I don't.
But if it's a value, it doesn't matter if we've seen, it doesn't matter if the jury's out. If it's a value, it's a value, and then we should build towards it.
You should, but I mean, if it comes between like, should we just do white glove or do that? Like if you're resource constrained in any way.
Yeah, then you
But
do what
yes.
you can.
I think for now, I would go white glove since like it makes more sense just because we don't have that many people now.
Yeah.
But you're not gonna say, no, sorry, come back in 2 weeks when we document.
But I mean, like Tally did the diet one, it took a week,
Yeah.
it's fine. And I mean, that one was a harder one than normal because it was Viper.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not too bad, and it makes it, because I know for them, like that one would have been one that if we didn't do the white glove, I could have seen them just like not using it.
Moving on.
Yeah, because like people are just lazy. Like they were just looking to like fork code, you know, so it was like, you know, and maybe they might end up forking Liquidity now anyway, but that's just because we're in talks with them. But yeah, like a lot of these, you know, like Ample Fork, we really had to push. I was like, if we would have at any point let that go, like it would have not happened. Like, we like guilted them into it almost.
So this brings up like an interesting, I know we could talk forever about all this stuff, but like, there's a tension between the neediness of us as a company and a protocol for something, and the sort of, in a way, the conflicting constraints that puts you in towards other values you have. You have these values that might conflict in terms of how to prioritize them, you know, like,
For sure.
you know, and I guess we just do our best when we have these talks and we sort of recalibrate what we have to.
Anyway, that's kind of it as far as questions I have. Akram, you haven't said anything, you have to say something.
You have a Teller hat on, you have to say something. You made it.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know what to say now after all this talk. I'm kind of, I guess, a little shy and embarrassed to even say it's the reason I got into all this. It's just to learn, like, just trying to learn, basically to get. I feel like coding or programming in general gives you the freedom of, that the having that skill or that experience gives you the freedom to work anywhere, be anywhere. So that's, I mean, I guess that's the dominant reason that I got into all this. It's not like, I mean, I really don't have a strong opinion about decentralization or if it's better or it's worse, that sort of thing. So I don't even know if I should say that working at Tellor, but it's just, I guess the icing on the cake was to like somehow end up with you guys. I mean, everybody's been gracious and like helping me learn and all that. So.
Well,
And to have a moral compass, like I feel like the whole team has like the public good that you got, that Tally and Mike were speaking about. The fact that you care about that is just, it's heartening. It's nice.
What motivated you to apply for Mike N's boot camp? Or
To
like-
learn a skill, learn a new skill. Yeah.
And we like decentralization, but we have no morals outside of that. So it's about working jobs.
yeah. I mean, that's their only motivation.
No wire tapper.
Yes.
I actually like to break rules a lot, wherever I can.
I'm a jaywalker.
Oh,
Yeah, it's dangerous in DC.
Well,
Maybe
you
better
have
in
to
your
know the
court.
intersection.
That's-
It's by my house.
just don't do it in LA.
Yeah.
They
Or
will
Berlin.
take it seriously. But yeah, so anyway, hope this was a good talk. Gonna kick off Teller Week.
Yeah.
It's always a great one. Hope we can do it in like 6 months again. We can talk. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you